I'm Anna Jester. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing for eJournalPress. And eJournalPress is a company that provides both peer review systems online for scholarly publications and production tracking systems. And we've had many people who have said over the years, if they work in both, why didn't you combine those? And the answer is, well, not everybody uses both of them. And in many cases, the people who do use each of those systems have not only very differing opinions, but different really needs. So how many of you are familiar with online manuscript submission and peer review? Ever submitted a manuscript? Okay, great. So I will not reiterate in great detail what that process necessarily entails in entirety. But the certainly information that is collected as part of an author submission is up with eJournalPress to each different society or association or journal using the software. So we currently have over 5,000 different configurations available for the peer review system. You'll be glad to know we've never asked anyone to sit through a list of all of them and say yay or nay. So we really kind of try to configure the system as much as possible for our client base. And we tend to target people who don't want the basic system. That is who we're looking for. We want people who want to integrate, and the integration I'm going to talk about today, of course, is with data harmony. So we also, again, we do provide production tracking systems as well. Maybe the simplest break of those two is online manuscript submission and peer review is everything up until an article is accepted, and then production tracking may start after that up until it's published, although in true form, that's not the end of an article anymore. Ideally, you will have perhaps multiple versions of that article in the production tracking system. You may very well be sending it to multiple online publishing platforms, maybe one that is your standard platform, one that is part of an aggregator that you are a member of, and you may want to repurpose that content. In fact, if you're me, I beg you to repurpose your content. Don't just use it one time. So that is really what we do. So one of the things that perhaps because of the type of customer that we target, our customers expect anymore is integration. And integration is kind of like 5 people walking up to the elephant with blindfolds. What does it mean to you? So it means, what do you need it to do for you right now? And it might mean, now I need to add on to it. It's been a year, or it's been 2 years, or we're moving to a new vendor. So really, variety is the important thing to keep in mind. It's not okay to integrate with just one system. I can't imagine what our clients would say to us if we said, well, you can integrate all you want, but only with one system. That's all, no more. You know, for all of us, if you're like me, you have a smartphone, you also have a tablet, I also have a laptop, and then I have a computer that I use at the office that even has multiple screens. Now I can look at things over here and over there, and really, someone coming to me and saying, no, here's really how you want to use your system, I kind of step back and wonder if I should run away. So really, variety is the thing anymore. And in my opinion, vendors and customers, people who own the data, really have to expect it and request it. And similar to a discussion that was earlier, in our system, your data is your data. We don't own your data, and we do own the technology, own the platform, but we do not do things with your data. It's completely up to you. So in addition to that, because of the type of market that I work in, the platform needs to work not just on Macs, not just on PCs, but also on smartphones, on tablets, on many different kinds of tablets. Does anyone know how many tablets came out in the last year? You know, it's an ongoing process. And we really work with our customers and talk with them about, what do you need it to do? And those are generally your best way to get feedback about what didn't work. I'm sure we can all relate to that as vendors. So why do people want that? Is it really that they are just sitting around wondering how to change our world this week? No, generally no. There might be a couple of those, in fact, in each of our client groups, but certainly their common implementation motivation is because there's a business reason for doing it. They need in some way to have that interaction so that it can either make them money or that the information can be sent back and forth. Maybe it's even just for the good of science. So in our system, by default now for several years, we've had a number of ways authors could enter information in during submission to tell us how they classify their manuscript. So I'm sure the editors in the room would have some differing opinions as to the authors in some instances as to how you would classify your manuscript. And interestingly enough, in our system, you can call it pretty much anything you want. By default, we start with something that we call subject areas. Subject areas is a set list provided to us by the journal. So for most people, originally, that was 50 terms, 100 terms. It was not a thesaurus or a taxonomy. And in fact, in our system, there are configurations to say how many do they have to select, how many are required, what is the maximum number that they can select, and then how many should they see in the view. And one of the fascinating things to me about that is over the years, I've heard it's more likely for terms that are immediately visible to be selected. Not that surprising. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're doing a good job of classifying our manuscript in that case. Additionally, we have something here that I've titled manuscript keywords. Again, in our database, it's just another subject area list. And in this instance, you have not only a certain amount available in the view, but you can shoot them over to the right and then move them up or down to say, this one is more important. This is a major theme. This is a minor theme. Also, again, people didn't always choose correctly. So a third option that we've added in the last couple of years is an autocomplete list. So it's a free-form keyword text box. Generally, people can enter in those free-form keywords if they start typing, say, 3 letters. In this case, I typed BIO, and then it starts to autocomplete, much like we might see in Google search engines. Hopefully less disturbing than some of the things you've seen in the Google search engine. So you can choose as many as you want, and then if they do have something that is not already included on your list, they can go ahead and just enter that free-form text. But that free-form text is not then just added to your list, thankfully, because of course misspelling things, especially if you have a large number of authors for whom English is not their first language, that can get very problematic very quickly. So there is a way in our system for you to go and see what have people typed in free-form. Let's curate that list and see if we want to add it. And then I left it on the screen here. You can't see it very well, but if you want to, in our system, you can still make people choose from one single drop-down list. Do you remember when that was the standard? Okay, so those are all examples of ways authors are entering information about their submission. And in our system, they can go back and forth, and up until the paper is submitted, they can make changes to that. They may also change it at revision. You may want to change it at acceptance, which we'll talk about just a little bit as well. So the data harmony integration that eJournalPress has done can be allowing terms from your thesaurus to be added either at submission or at acceptance. And while I don't think it's particularly common, there's a great chance that the revised requirements, if you asked an author to revise a manuscript, could greatly change the terms you might want to associate with a manuscript. So it's good to still have a backup plan and not just take things from the very beginning all of the time. So in our integration, one of the examples you can see, this screen right here is what we call our manuscript details tab, and all of the information that populates the manuscript details is information that was either entered by the authors during the submission process or added later as part of the process. So for example, reviewers' names don't show up until reviewers are assigned. Editors don't show up until they're assigned. So clicking this link here to the data harmony terms, assuming that you have this integration configured, and of course that you already have a data harmony thesaurus, will bring up a screen, and then you can say, yes, I want to search data harmony. And this screen, which I think was shown pretty similarly earlier, would show you the types of ways that you could go about associating terms. So there might be suggested thesaurus terms if you had had an automatic suggestion feature turned on. or you would be able to see all of the different thesaurus options there and could expand them and collapse them as needed. You might also want to search on the right hand for a term, and then once you have found it, click Add. All of your selected terms would then appear for you on screen, and then ideally you will click Submit at the bottom so that you would save those to the manuscript. And again, you can always come back and change your mind. So, now once that has then been saved as part of what I would call the manuscript metadata, that will then appear down here in the Data Harmony Terms section. So we're storing that information currently. There are a couple of options. If you want that information to not be stored permanently or to be stored as a note instead of actually stored in metadata terms that would always be associated with the manuscript, those are certainly options we would want our customers to let us know. If you are doing it with an automatic search result based on a taxonomy, which might say pull terms based on things the authors had entered in the abstract, you could also then have an automated list come forward. But I think most of us would agree that's not generally going to be a perfect solution, just because there are always terms that are things we want people in the know to be able to determine. So from the online manuscript submission and peer review standpoint, why is it important to do this kind of work? Certainly I feel it is extremely important to have good, or what I might call clean, data about your manuscripts. Making sure that those terms are associated with your manuscript is ideally the way they're going to be found in the future. But before they're published, it's very important to make sure you're actually assigning the right reviewers. So for a number of our societies, their reviewer database has been populated over the years, either from an import of people imported when the peer review system went live, or when they launched it, some people in 1999 or 2000, years back when we first started the system, their database has grown over time. So all of those people can come up as potential reviewers if that is what the editors want to do, or staff when they are assigning potential reviewers. And that can really flood not only the number of people who might be assigned, but you may find that you are overusing people. Why would you do that? Well, if you have, say, a field, I'll just say ecology, and they have a term of ecology associated with their profile, that's great, but specifically what kind of ecology? You don't want to use a specialized reviewer on a paper who would have been much better used to the journal reviewing a very detailed paper when you have just asked them to review a paper that 200 other people could have easily reviewed as well. And in our system, you can see all kinds of statistics about what we would call potential reviewers. To me, they are potential reviewers up until the time they say, yes, I will review your paper. And what it means to be a reviewer, certainly different depending on the platform and even in the reviewer instructions. I might submit a review on TripAdvisor that would in no way be long enough or detailed enough for an online manuscript submission and peer review of a scholarly article. So when you are looking at information about your potential reviewers, you can certainly see their name. You might want to search for them. You can see their organization, some key information such as average duration. Do you want to pick the reviewer that takes 387 days to return the review on average? Again, it's a screenshot from a demonstration site. Don't be worried. So, and then also you can rank the reviewers in our system if you want to. So it might, if they generally take 20 days, but they have an excellent ranking, they do a great job, it just takes them a while, maybe you do want to use that reviewer. We also keep information about when was the last time they reviewed and workload statistics, because you don't want to overload your reviewers. And if you read the abstract for this talk, I talked about reviewer fatigue. How many people have ever joined a committee and then later realized, what have I gotten into? Now I have a second job, or something like that. So we want to make sure that you're using reviewers, certainly that are most qualified, but that you're not overusing them and preventing them from enthusiastically agreeing to review in the future. So the terms that are associated with a person can also show up in the system if you want. It's a configuration. And then perhaps, extremely importantly, matching subject area percentage. So how many of this person's terms that are associated with their specialties match this manuscript? And all of that can mean that if you have good data about your manuscripts and about your people, and they are classified in ways that you are happy with, and ideally in ways that they are happy with, then you will be able to assign the appropriate reviewers in this system, more likely to have them say yes, more likely for everyone to have a positive experience. Pardon me. So really, somewhat in conclusion, I want to say it's your data. Whether you're looking at it from afar, you want to look at it up close, you want to do both, you want to switch it up and have different teams do that every 6 months. Whatever it is, make sure that you're using it effectively. Don't be afraid to ask your vendors, peer review vendors, production tracking vendors, other vendors as well, composition and so on, to integrate with systems such as the data harmony system. As time has gone on, APIs are available and everyone knows we can configure how much information should go back and forth, what should or should not be seen, what should be associated with a manuscript, and just make sure that you are truly utilizing that. I think too many people have databases that they feel need cleaned. And don't be afraid to do some test runs first and say, okay, well, we are getting to somewhere without having to first maybe clean up all 5 databases that we have. What can we do to integrate them in a meaningful way and maybe clean them up in the process perhaps as well?